The clock on the sterile hospital wall read 12:32 p.m. Room 317 smelled of antiseptic and plastic, while machines hummed their monotonous rhythm. The beeping was steady, not urgent, just routinely marking time. On the hospital bed, Amara lay motionless. Her frail frame was tucked beneath a pink blanket covered in cartoon stars. Her eyes remained shut, her face pale, dark curls tangled against the pillow. Tubes wrapped around her like vines, clinging to the thread of life she had left. She hadn't spoken, moved, or opened her eyes in 7 days. One moment, she had been laughing at the breakfast table with her father. Next, she collapsed while tying her shoes before school. The doctors called it acute cerebral shutdown, something so rare that even top pediatric neurologists could only offer guesses. She might wake up, one had said. She might not, another added in almost the same breath. Her father, Elijah Martin, sat by her side. His large, calloused hands dwarfed hers as he held her small, limp fingers. A construction worker by trade, Elijah had built bridges and lifted steel beams with cranes. He had poured foundations deep into the ground, but no labor had ever felt heavier than watching his little girl slip away. The nurses called it devotion. The doctors called it desperation. Elijah didn't care what they called it. This was his baby girl, and he wasn't leaving her side. Still, time chipped away at hope. 1 week in, the doctors started speaking in whispers. Hospital policy, insurance issues, and next steps entered the conversation. That's when Devin Langston appeared. Langston was a billionaire tech mogul who owned half the hospitals in the region. He was a self-proclaimed genius, not just rich, but smug about it. A man with too much money, too many toys, and not enough heart. He arrived unannounced that Thursday afternoon, flanked by his PR team and private security guards. He had read about Amara in the local newspaper while sipping his imported espresso, and saw an opportunity. "I'm offering you a miracle package," Langston told Elijah. "Top international neurologists, AI-powered diagnostics, experimental procedures all at zero cost." Elijah, worn down and desperate, asked only one question: "Will it bring her back?" Langston chuckled, his eyes glinting beneath designer sunglasses. "Black boy, I know how to make your daughter wake up. Trust me, we'll give her the best tech money can buy. We'll upgrade her brain like an iPhone." The laugh echoed off the walls like a gunshot. Elijah's face hardened, the muscles in his jaw twitching. He stood up slowly, placing Amara's hand back on the blanket. "She's not a machine," he said quietly. "She's a little girl." Langston waved dismissively. "Emotion makes you weak. Science wins." But Amara didn't stir that day, nor the next. Langston brought in machines with blinking lights, virtual simulations, even a VR headset they placed gently over Amara's eyes. Nothing worked. She remained silent, unmoving. One by one, the specialists flew out quietly, shamefully, leaving behind only invoices and silent monitors. By Sunday evening, Langston stopped coming altogether, but Elijah remained. Elijah read Amara her favorite bedtime stories. He played her favorite lullabies from his phone. He rubbed lotion on her feet and told her about the moon phases she loved. So much how Venus had been bright in the sky the night before. Just past midnight, a nurse tapped on the window. "Mr. Martin," she whispered, "there's a boy here. Says he wants to help." "A boy?" Elijah stepped out cautiously. "What boy?" She pointed toward the lobby. There, sitting alone on the cold bench, was a barefoot black child. He couldn't have been older than 11. He wore an oversized gray hoodie, frayed at the sleeves. His jeans were torn, and his face was smudged with dirt, but his eyes deep, clear, and still caught Elijah's breath. The boy stood up as Elijah approached, nodding respectfully. "Are you Amara's father?" he asked. "Yes," Elijah said, hesitating. "Who are you?" The boy didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "I know how to help her." Elijah blinked. "What did you say?" "I know how to wake her up." The words weren't loud or arrogant. They weren't even hopeful. They were certain. Elijah, already sleep-deprived and emotionally worn, sighed. "You're just a kid, man." The boy nodded, unfazed. "But sometimes it takes someone small to remind people of big things. Listen, I appreciate the thought, but doctors couldn't help her. A billionaire couldn't help her. I don't think. She's not lost," the boy said softly. "She's listening from far away, but she doesn't know if it's safe to come back." Elijah's mouth went dry. The boy stepped forward. "She needs something the hospital doesn't have." "What?" He looked Elijah in the eyes. "She needs your pain, your truth, the words you've hidden behind strength." Elijah was stunned. "Who are you?" The boy didn't answer. "Can I sit with her?" Every instinct told Elijah to say no, but something deeper, something old and aching inside him, nodded. "All right," he whispered. The boy entered Amara's room and stood beside her bed, placing one hand lightly on her head. His lips moved silently for a moment. Then he turned to Elijah. "Now you," he said. "She knows you're here, but she needs to know why you're still here." Elijah stared at his daughter. His heart clenched. His lips parted. Then it came the words he hadn't said out loud since the day she collapsed. "I wasn't there, baby," he whispered. "I was at work. I missed your breakfast. I missed your smile. I missed your warning signs." His voice cracked. "I should have seen something was wrong. I should have been home earlier. I should have held you longer that morning. I should have told you how proud I was. Tears ran down his cheeks, falling onto her blanket. He gripped her hand, shaking. Please come back. I'll never miss another second. I promise. Silence. Then, the heart monitor beeped a little faster. Just once, the nurse gasped. Elijah blinked. Did you see that? I did, the boy said calmly. She's listening. Then, just like that, he turned to leave. Wait, Elijah called. What's your name? The boy paused, his hand on the door. They call me Isaiah. I'll be back tomorrow. He walked into the hallway, barefoot and silent, as if he belonged to another world entirely. Elijah turned back to Amara. Her fingers twitched slightly. For the first time in a week, the machines blinked with a different rhythm, not routine, hope. The sun had barely broken over the horizon, but Elijah hadn't moved from his daughter's side. His back ached, his eyes were red and dry, but he refused to rest. Because sometime during the long hours of night, Amara's left index finger had twitched again. This time, without a monitor's prompt, it was like a whisper from the other side, faint, fleeting, but real. The new nurse on shift rolled her eyes when Elijah spoke of the boy. No visitor was signed in last night, she said, tapping her tablet. And no child was on the security footage either. Are you sure you weren't dreaming? Elijah said nothing. He knew Isaiah had been real. The moment that boy touched Amara's head, something had shifted in the room, not just physically, but spiritually. Like a window had opened somewhere in the universe. That afternoon, the door creaked again. Elijah turned. Isaiah stood in the doorway, same frayed hoodie, same bare feet, same calm eyes. I said I'd come back, he said. Elijah nearly ran to him. Where do you go? Who are you? I go where I'm needed, the boy answered, and I'm someone who remembers what others forget. Isaiah walked to the bed and gently placed a hand on Amara's wrist, closing his eyes. She's closer today. Elijah's heart jumped. Closer. She's been listening, Isaiah said. Your voice reached her yesterday, but now she needs something else. Tell me, Elijah whispered. She needs the song. Elijah's face twisted in confusion. Song? Isaiah looked up. The one you used to sing to her, before the fire, before the quiet. Elijah. It stumbled back, like he'd been punched. There was only one song, a lullaby, not recorded anywhere, not shared with anyone, just his voice in the dark, carrying the melody of a story from his childhood. One of his grandmothers used to sing when he was scared. Asterisk, there's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer, you'll fly once again. Asterisk, he hadn't sung it since the day they buried his wife. His throat tightened. I can't. Yes, you can, Isaiah said softly, because she still remembers it. And so do you. The hospital room faded in Elijah's eyes, replaced by a tiny living room with soft yellow curtains. A little girl on his lap, her head on his chest. Their world is warm and whole. He blinked hard, the memory shattering, but his heart remembered. So he sat beside her bed and cleared his throat. It cracked, his voice trembled, but he began. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. He paused, emotion overwhelming him. Isaiah nodded. Again, and Elijah did. Hold on, little dreamer, you'll fly once again. A long low beep came from the monitor. Elijah panicked, but then saw it. Her heart rate was rising, not dangerously, but steadily. Then her fingers twitched. Once, twice, the nurse on duty gasped. She's reacting to the music. Isaiah looked at Elijah. You gave her something to come back to. Now she knows the way. Elijah wiped his eyes. Why are you helping us? You don't know us. Isaiah stepped away from the bed. You're wrong. I do know her. Elijah stiffened. Isaiah took a breath. Not her name, but her heart. He looked around the room. Because I was a child once who cried in a bed like this. Alone, afraid, no one ever came for me. No songs, no hands holding mine. I waited and waited, but no one told me to come home. Silence choked the air. I promised if I ever got the chance to change that, I would. Elijah fell to his knees beside him. You're like an angel. Isaiah didn't answer. He just turned to Amara and whispered, You've been found. Then he stepped toward the door. Will you come again tomorrow? Elijah called out. The boy turned slightly. If she needs me, yes. But I think your voice is stronger now. Wait. Elijah ran to the hallway, but just like before, the boy had vanished. This time, Elijah asked the receptionist and checked the security cameras. No trace. But none of that mattered, because when he returned to the room, Amara's eyes were fluttering beneath her lids. She wasn't awake, but she wasn't gone, and for the first time in a week, Elijah smiled. The ICU floor was unnaturally quiet. Doctors moved like whispers, machines beeped in a steady rhythm, and in room 317, something holy lingered in the air. Not the sterile cold of medicine, but something soft. Something warm. Elijah had barely blinked since the night before. His voice was worn to a husk from singing the same song again and again. Not because someone told him to, but because he saw how every single note brought his daughter closer. The monitors didn't lie. Her brainwaves had stabilized. Her heart was strong, and this morning, at precisely 6:02 a.m., Amara's right hand, the one that had been limp for 7 days, reached for his dot. No one had coached her, no reflex test, no stimulus. She reached out. Elijah had crumbled, sobbing into her blanket. It was a movement that should have been impossible, a movement that had no scientific explanation. But Elijah didn't care about science anymore. He only cared about faith, and a boy with no shoes who had taught him to believe again. Dr. Lester stood by the window, flipping through her notes for the third time that hour. "We don't understand this," she murmured, her voice equal parts amazed and skeptical. "Neurologically, nothing explains this kind of spontaneous recovery in the absence of medication or surgical intervention." The nurse beside her looked baffled. "So what do we chart it as?" Dr. Lester hesitated, then whispered, "Call it an anomaly." But Elijah smiled from the corner, gently holding Amara's hand. "You call it what you want," he said. "But I know it. I saw what I heard." Dr. Lester raised an eyebrow. "You think it's the boy?" Elijah nodded slowly. "I don't just think it, I know it." That afternoon, Elijah stepped outside for the first time in 3 days. The world felt different. Everything felt different. The sun didn't feel like fire anymore. It felt like a promise. Back at the hospital, Elijah found something taped to Amara's window. A note folded small, written in a crooked blue pen. He opened it with shaking fingers. Asterisk, sometimes the healing comes before the waking. Don't give up on her. Just because her eyes are closed, she hears you. Keep singing. Elijah pressed the paper to his heart. Isaiah had come again, not in flesh, but in presence. The hospital had no record of anyone entering or exiting. No staff had seen him, but he had been there. Amara's breathing changed after that. It deepened, became more rhythmic, less labored, less mechanical. Her color returned in full dot, and then, late that night, she spoke. "Daddy," a whisper, a murmur, but unmistakable. Elijah dropped his notebook. His legs went weak. He rushed to the bed and cupped her face in his trembling hands. Amara, can you hear me, baby?" She blinked slowly. Her lips barely moved. "You came back?" "I never left," he whispered, his voice breaking. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Where's the boy?" Elijah froze. You saw him?" She nodded slowly. "He said he was the echo that found me when I was floating and couldn't see. He sang until I heard your voice again." She closed her eyes. "He held my hand. He said, 'Your daddy's waiting on the other side of the dark,' and I followed the light." Elijah felt the weight of her words settle into his soul like a stone into water. "He led you back," Amara whispered. "He smelled like dust and bread. He laughed like sunlight. He said his name was Isaiah." Tears rolled freely now. "Sweetheart," Elijah choked. "Isaiah is ... double quotes." He didn't know how to finish that sentence. An angel, a messenger, a miracle, maybe all three. But Amara smiled faintly. "He said he didn't need wings to fly, just faith." The next morning, news had already spread. The hospital was in quiet uproar, whispered conversations, hushed hallways because Amara's chart didn't make sense anymore. There were no medications listed to explain the recovery, no clinical trial, just a girl who shouldn't have woken up, but did, because of a voice. And a boy no one could find. Outside room 317, a young intern sat scrolling through security footage. He rewound, fast-forwarded, and zoomed in. But Isaiah wasn't there, not once, not in any frame. The cameras showed Elijah singing, crying, and begging. But the hallway that Isaiah walked through, empty, every single time. The intern leaned back, goosebumps rising on his arms. "That boy," he whispered, "was never on camera." Meanwhile, Elijah and Amara were holding hands, watching cartoons. She had color in her cheeks, a smile on her lips. Sleep still pulled at her eyes, but life had returned in full. "Tell me the story again," she said. "What story?" Elijah asked. "The girl who whispered to the moon." Elijah blinked. He hadn't told that story since, but she smiled, and he knew. Isaiah had told her. She hadn't forgotten after all. Neither had he. That night, Elijah didn't leave the hospital. He couldn't, not yet. He stayed awake in a chair beside Amara's bed, notebook in hand, writing page after page, stories, songs, prayers. He would never again let silence be his language. And just before midnight, he stepped into the hallway for some air. The wing was empty, lights dimmed. Then, out of nowhere, a voice soft familiar. "You did good, Mr. Elijah." He turned. There he was, barefoot, same coat, same dirt-streaked cheeks, but this time, smiling widely. Elijah stepped forward. "Isaiah," the boy nodded. "She doesn't need me anymore. She asked for you." "I know," Isaiah said, "but now she has you." "That's better." Elijah's eyes welled. "Will I ever see you again?" Isaiah tilted his head. "Maybe. Or maybe someone else will." "What? Do I owe you?" Elijah whispered. Isaiah's smile softened. "Tell her stories every night, even when she's grown. Never stop singing." Then he turned, walked toward the end of the hallway, and vanished. No door opened, no sound, just gone. But Elijah didn't chase him. He just stood there, still. 3 months had passed since Amara awoke from the coma that stole her light. 3 months since a barefoot boy with dust on his skin and stars in his voice led her back from the edge of darkness. Elijah hadn't stopped telling the story since, not because it made sense, but because it mattered. He'd told it to reporters, to the hospital board, to skeptical doctors with clipboards and narrowed eyes. he told himself in the middle of the night when fear crept back in. But most importantly, he told it to Amara every single night, and she remembered every word. The doctors called it spontaneous neural reintegration. They said the coma was likely caused by idiopathic cerebral shutdown. Big words that danced around the truth. Words that didn't fit the real story, because no study, no EEG, no medical journal entry could explain what Elijah had witnessed, what Amara had felt. She had described Isaiah's laugh, his touch, the way he smelled like bread and hope. She remembered. "What?" he said. "You're not lost, you're just not finished yet." Elijah sold his possessions, the Range Rover, the lake house in Colorado, the last of his trust fund investments. He didn't tell anyone, didn't feel the need to. For the first time in his life, he wasn't buying anything, he was building. With time, with words, with truth. He used the money to launch a program called Voices at Dawn, a free art and music center for children in underserved communities, especially those navigating trauma, illness, or grief. Its slogan, "Where silence ends and healing begins." The first mural that went up on the wall was painted by Amara, a child with a coat too big and shoes too small. A hand extended from the darkness, offering a song. Beneath it, in big blue brush strokes, he didn't have wings, he had faith. Reporters asked about the boy, of course. Where is he now? Is he real? What was his name? Each time, Elijah said the same thing. His name is Isaiah. I don't know where he is, but I know where he was when it mattered. A few laughed, others called it folklore, but a few wiped their eyes. Because they believed. And sometimes belief changes more than facts ever could. One evening, Amara and Elijah took a walk through the old neighborhood. She wore purple rain boots even though it hadn't rained in days. "It's just in case," she said. "Isaiah told me the best surprises happen when you're ready for them." They stopped at a quiet street corner near the closed-down train station. There, beneath a broken street lamp, stood an old man playing harmonica. A cardboard sign rested at his feet. "You're not lost, you're just not finished yet." Amara gasped. "Daddy, look." Elijah blinked, then walked over. The man smiled through a grizzled beard. His fingers were calloused, his clothes worn. "Where'd you get that phrase?" Elijah asked gently. Man shrugged. "Heard it from a little boy years ago. Said he traveled light, only carried the truth. Used to play music with me till one day he just vanished." "Was his name Isaiah?" Amara asked. The man's eyes sparkled. "Well now, that was what he said, wasn't it?" Amara turned to Elijah, grinning widely. "He's still out there, Daddy." Elijah felt something bloom in his chest. "Yeah, I think he is." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She stood by her bedroom window, staring at the moon. Elijah walked in and sat beside her. "You okay, baby?" "I was thinking," she said, hugging her stuffed giraffe. "What if Isaiah finds another little girl who's lost? And what if she's scared like I was?" Elijah brushed her hair back. "Then I hope someone is singing nearby." She nodded solemnly. "We should teach the world to sing." He smiled. "You want to do that?" "Yes, like you taught me, but bigger. Like everywhere. On the internet? On YouTube? On rooftops? In the middle of the night? When people feel the most alone?" Elijah hugged her close. "Then we'll do it." And they did. They recorded Amara's story, her drawings, and her laughter. Elijah recorded songs from the notebook he used in the hospital, raw, honest, trembling with love. They called the channel Isaiah's Echo. In 2 weeks, it reached 2 million views. In 4 months, they received over 10,000 messages from ICU beds, broken homes, orphanages, prison cells, and lonely dorm rooms. Each one ended the same way. "I thought I was lost, but now I think maybe I'm just not finished yet." On the first anniversary of her waking, Amara stood on a small stage at the Voices at Dawn Center. She held a microphone with both hands. Her knees trembled, but her voice did not. She sang the song Isaiah had taught her. As she finished, Elijah noticed a boy sitting in the back row. Barefoot, dusty coat, a soft smile. Their eyes met, and then he was gone. No applause, no sound, just faith. Miracles aren't always thunder and lightning. Sometimes they're dirt under your nails and stories at bedtime. Sometimes they're the voice of a father rediscovering his song, or a little girl's hand reaching through the dark, or a boy no one believes and laughing at the impossible until it isn't impossible anymore, because the truth is, he didn't wake her up. He reminded the world that love, raw, honest, unashamed, love is the strongest force in the universe. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's enough to call someone home.